range. 3-point range. Shoot your shot. Get that hot. Jump so high. Touch the sky. With a bet on that Rose Sweat 3-point range.
All right, everybody, welcome to 3-Point Range. I hear that there was a record viewership for the Super Bowl on Sunday, and apparently, from my research, there were only 2 people on Earth who didn't watch the Super Bowl. There was some guy in Borneo who's just completely unaware of modern technology, and you might have guessed that the second one was me, the host of this podcast.
That's crazy.
No way.
I did not only did I not watch the game, 1 second of it, I have not even seen a highlight. Not one highlight of the Super Bowl. Nothing. 0. Yeah, I mean, I guess you all watched it, and I'm guessing the joke's on you because I heard it sucked. But yeah, I did not see any of it. I went skiing and with some friends of mine, and it was the best Super Bowl Sunday I've ever had. With that said, and since we have trashed it, I think it makes perfect sense that even though this was supposed to be our Super Bowl episode, instead we're just going to boycott the game completely and talk about fun stuff that is actually in the news. And so, Scout, Kimball Crosley, lead us off with your take on what everyone in the world is really talking about.
Hey, sorry, I have to improvise for a second. We are not going to boycott that subject, especially since apparently you thought the game was boring because you think the Chiefs are the Harlem Globetrotters and there's no reason to watch the game.
I thought that might come up.
Your Harlem Globetrotters lost, by the way, and you probably don't know because you haven't watched the highlight. You don't know what happened in the game, but that is what happened.
This man didn't watch the Super Bowl.
And actually. It's funny. So many. I'm up here in New England. It could hardly have been more enjoyable for New England fans because they've been just like dying over the comparisons of the Chiefs dynasty to their Patriots dynasty. So they just needed this to confirm that they have a better dynasty, and then they're trashing Mahomes and Andy Reid and all that. So, but now I will move on.
So the Eagles won?
Yes, they did.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Generals won.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone has been asking me my thoughts on the Luka Doncic trade. Well,
everyone?
Okay. Maybe 1 or 2 people.
The 1 or 2 other people on this podcast.
Yeah, but they know,
right.
those people know that I am famous for being anti-Luka. I am a Doncic hater.
Yes.
And
I've
written about this.
Yes.
Yes. I don't believe he's a champion. I think he's lazy and slow on defense. He is a savant on offense, and he's beautiful to watch. But as the Celtics showed last year in the championship series, it is not hard to exploit him on defense. Just get him in a ball screen over and over again. And I was watching part of his Lakers debut the other night, and I'll tell you what, gold is not a flattering color for him. He looked fatter and older than ever in the gold Laker uniform. So my take on this is there's a lot of people, of course, bashing it and saying it's a terrible trade for the Mavs. How could they do this? So the surprise to you is, as much as I hate Luka Doncic, I agree it's a terrible trade for the Mavericks, but I think it's a terrible trade for both teams. I think they're both screwed going forward, long term, that is. Because as much as I despise Doncic and the way he plays the game, he is the Mavericks' identity. I mean, he put that franchise, post Dirk Nowitzki on the map, and they're relevant because of him. Where there's a ton of, and I know you think all the NBA teams are relevant, Tim, but
yes, I do.
Most of them are, if not all. And he made them relevant. And it's not so much that I don't, even though I don't think they could win a championship with him. They were fun to watch. They're competitive. Their fans loved them. But the bigger thing is, if you're going to trade him, you got to trade him for a franchise piece that's going to keep you going, and not Anthony Davis, who was a great player, but now, as we've seen, breaks down a lot and is already broken down after, playing one game with the Mavs, and now he's going to be out for a while. I think it's a bad trade for the Lakers because I don't think Doncic is a winner, and I don't think it's going to be a good pairing with LeBron as much as LeBron is excited about it. I think their deficiencies are only going to show up more and more. Their defensive deficiencies, and I think especially when LeBron leaves, then it's all about Doncic, and they're really in trouble. So I'm predicting a couple things. And one thing I would say is that when they made the Mark Williams trade, I thought, ooh, maybe
we'll
they're
get
going to
to
be
that.
okay.
Oh, we'll get
Because
to that.
right, because they got a guy that could protect the rim which is one of their big flaws. And I thought, oh, that's not a bad blend for the short term. Maybe this can work a little bit. Of course, that trade was rescinded. So my prediction is both teams are going to be in trouble going forward, and that one day you're going to see, probably more down the line than now, but JJ Redick and Doncic are going to get into it, maybe publicly. I think JJ seems to be a good coach, and I just can't imagine he's going to put up with the way Doncic just waves at guys going by when they dribble past him, and just how he stands around. He literally had his, you see NBA players often, they say, oh, when you're tired, they grab their shorts, they bend over. You don't see that often during a defensive possession. but I swear that's what Doncic was doing sometimes in the game the other night. All right, so we might have a Doncic fan
I believe
in our midst.
I believe
let's hear you
that
defend.
what we'd say is that them's fighting words.
Them's you go ahead.
No.
You go
That I'm setting you up. I don't know anything about Luka Doncic, but I know that them's fighting words for you. So go for it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's a crazy take. I think that if you look at the Lakers, I mean, it's a storied franchise known for attracting big name stars and being at the center of the spotlight. It's in Hollywood, the Showtime Lakers legacy, right? I mean, it's not just about their dominance in the past, but just a culture of embracing star power. And I think that they are now setting themselves up for the post-LeBron era in a perfect sense by trading for and capturing one of the league's, I mean, it's not even a rising star. Like, he is one of the faces of the league, and I would say that outside of maybe Jokic and Wemby, he is one of the best players in the league.
Don't qualify it. Remember our journalism school discussions about this.
No, but I would put them in terms of, I would put them
Aside from them, he's one of? Come on.
He is one.
Take a stand.
All right. I would say he is one of, amongst those two guys, like, the best players in the league. And I think that's, I mean, I know that Anthony Davis is a foundation, but you already see with, him being in Dallas for like a few days now, and he's already like out due to injury. I mean, the injury's been a question with him. I understand that there's some, concerns around Luka and kind of his propensity to, add weight over the course of the season. All I know is that, I follow my buddy Ben Golliver. He works for the Washington Post and covers the NBA, and I was watching some of the cell phone videos, right, he was putting up online of the Lakers, warming up before Luka's debut on Monday night, and that boy was doing push-ups, okay? He looks pretty locked into me. But no, in all seriousness, though.
Kimball, were you watching the cell phone videos?
No.
That boy was doing
there
push-ups.
that-
Push-ups pregame.
You're
Push-ups
not watching
pregame.
enough cell phone videos,
He's locked
Kimball.
in.
Then you'd
He's
know
locked
better.
in. Then you would know. No, but all seriousness, though, like, I think that this is a monumental win for the Lakers. You're pairing Doncic with LeBron James. That's one of the most dynamic duos in basketball. I mean, you saw the clip of JJ Redick kind of laughing when somebody asked him about, like, yeah, so how's it going to work fitting Luka with LeBron? Are you kidding? Like, I just think the move is a game changer. I think that if you ask me in terms of this NBA trade deadline, the Lakers clearly outdid everyone. I mean, I think this adding Doncic elevates the Lakers' title hopes. I don't think it makes them an instant contender, right? You're still going to have to, find some depth around center, and obviously the Mark Williams thing fell through, and we'll get into that. But I mean, I think we're getting a little bit too into the weeds here. You put LeBron James and Luka Doncic on the floor together. That's an explosive pairing. And yes, I think that's obviously the future. There are some concerns. LeBron's 40, Luka's 25, but I mean, Luka's already poised to be the next face of the franchise for like a decade. I mean, he should have been the face of the Dallas Mavericks franchise, but I guess they decide that they just like don't care about their fans. I don't know. I think it gives Lakers a smooth transition to post LeBron. They don't have to worry about a lengthy rebuild. They have a star to build around. They can continue to find ways to compete at the highest level with Doncic leading the way. And people are talking about, I mean, I don't know if Luka's a leader. I don't know if he's a winner. He just led the Mavericks to an NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not good enough? Like, is that?
It's not. It's not good enough if you're a Laker. Let's bring in Tim here because
Well,
Tim might not follow. He might not follow the NBA now.
Okay.
But Tim,
I don't know.
When you think of great Lakers, do you remember that guy Jerry West?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You remember that guy? You remember that guy Magic Johnson?
I do remember him. Yes.
And you maybe even remember Kobe Bryant, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Would you say that all three of those guys had laser focus on winning? Not mixtapes, not fancy looks, but
no push-ups? No push-ups?
I don't know how many push-ups they did, but would you think they were laser focused on winning, that nothing was going to stop them? Even though Magic was all about showtime, we all know Magic was also about like nonstop work on his game and getting better and winning.
I don't, yeah.
And that's,
I mean, I don't remember Jerry West. I've never seen Jerry West play. You're older than I am, so you might have been back there for the Jerry West days. But I certainly Magic and Kobe shared that Mamba mentality. Yes, that.
And a lot of what you say is true, Shelby. But you're not going to win the title, which is what the Lakers are about with Doncic. And I think especially you're going to see their flaws exposed. We'll see like maybe the young Oklahoma City Thunder running right by those two guys on defense as the playoffs, if it gets that far.
And I know we're going to get into this very shortly in point number 2, but it does strike me, those of us who have endured this UNC basketball season, and let's face it, 3-point range always comes back to that eventually at some point.
It's true.
I think we have learned something about the need for a center with UNC basketball this year. It seems to be, I don't know. I'm not a coach. I don't see the game maybe the way someone with that advanced mentality can, but
I know the Lakers just signed Alex Lynn as a free agent.
You think that's going to be the answer?
Bro, I'm just saying they got someone.
UNC basketball has someone too, but
that
doesn't.
UNC basketball doesn't have Braun. It's Braun and Luka. It's Braun and Luka. I'm sorry, I'm yelling, y'all, but like, it's Braun and Luka.
But you just said yourself that you don't necessarily think that's going to produce a championship, and
I mean,
I do agree with Kimball.
Here's what I disagree with. The notion that like, oh well, now like they're, I mean, the title's theirs, right? Like they're automatic contenders. No, like you're still gonna have to try and find your fit. I mean, I think that in like the week or two leading up to that AD trade, and that's kind of the sad thing about the timing, they finally found a defensive identity. The Lakers are really starting to like gel and things like that. But I think that it's kind of ridiculous to sit here and ponder like, oh well, I mean, I don't know how this is gonna work out. I mean, you're talking about two of the most like talented offensive players in the league. They are both always, willing and honestly like eager to pass and set teammates up. They both know and respect each other's games and have from afar. And I also think that, honestly, if you look at a guy like LeBron, and I might get some pushback on this, but I think he definitely, for me, embodies the mentality of a winner, and he is always looking for ways to improve his game. He is that guy that is, there early getting shots up, there late getting shots up, and he's like, in his 40s, like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a guy like Luka, who has long idolized LeBron as one of his heroes, you don't think he might, rub off on him a little bit? Who is he learning from in Dallas, where he was the face of the league?
Mm-hmm.
You think Kyrie's getting in his ear? Like, no, bro. Like, and I understand. Go ahead.
I don't think it's just his conditioning. What part of Luka's problem is he's a wide body tank, and it works so well for him on offense. The way he moves his body around, he sets a screen for himself, basically, with how wide his body is, and how he just slowly trucks down the lane and has such good ball skills. That's not a great body for defense, and so he ends up, even if he were in great shape, I think he'd still be slow and a liability on defense.
I don't. Is defense really an issue in the NBA? Last
Yes,
time
it
I
is,
watched,
believe
I
it or
I
not.
mean, it is
didn't-
when you're fouling out in
I
game 3.
didn't know that anybody played defense, but real quick, and then we'll move on to point 2.
Yeah.
Shelby, I'm just curious about this. All right, Game 7 against the Celtics in the NBA Finals this coming year. It's down to one possession, down one. Who are you putting the ball in the hands of for the Lakers?
Ron.
Okay. So Luka getting this guy who's just a monster. You still want the ball in the hands of Braun to win the championship.
Can Braun not drive and dish to Luka?
I suppose.
I'm putting it in the hands of the vet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I'm coming back for point 2. I'm coming back to this idea that I just brought up, which I think is notable.
Let's talk.
And that is, I can't imagine that in that scenario that I've just created, that you're going to be, that you'd be comfortable if they miss that shot, that Alex Len is going to come down with that critical rebound that they need to get him over the hump. And I know there was another option this week that fell through, and I believe that's what your point 2 is all about. So go ahead and launch.
Yeah, I'm launching. All right, so here is the situation. I mean, the trade saga, I think, between the Charlotte Hornets and the Lakers could not have been more comical to me, truthfully. So basically what happened was the Lakers rescinded their trade for Mark Williams, citing, quote, failure to satisfy a condition of the trade. That meaning that, like, there were multiple physical issues with Mark Williams. Okay? This happened after the deadline, so this wasn't they could not edit this trade with Mark Williams. Again, the trade being for, I think the Hornets received Dalton Connect, maybe another pick or two, but it was essentially a swap for Mark Williams. The Lakers get a center that they need with, giving off 80. And the Hornets are going to receive Dalton Connect, who, rookie guard, super talented, out of Tennessee, but I mean, he's not getting any play on the Lakers. And the Hornets could not trade Mark Williams because there were multiple injury concerns. It was rescinded. Okay? Mail back to sender. That was crazy to me because, and I think it brings up two things. Okay, two things I wanted to discuss. One, how disorganized the Hornets are. Two, just how, in a sense, dehumanizing the NBA can be to its players. So just take the Hornets, for example. Let's start there. Okay. They were so eager to trade away Williams that they practically gave him up, I think, for a fraction of his value. And then when the trade falls apart, they scrambled and they put out this statement about how the Lakers were actively pursuing Williams and they always wanted him, and, oh, welcome back to the Hornets family. No, bro, no. You don't get to play that. And I think it's a perfect example of their dysfunction, just poor asset management, complete lack of direction. They ended up clueless in this back and forth with the Lakers over multiple medical issues, not pertaining to his back, I will say, because I know that's something that reporters definitely wanted to put out there, because lingering back issues can stay with a guy for his career. But multiple medical issues, it makes them look even more clueless. And I think for me, not only was just that interesting in the sense that I don't know how you as a organization can trade away a guy so close to deadline with so many medical issues that just bounces back like that. But also just something that I was thinking about is the way that, in a sense, teams treat and discuss players, and this is part of the media too, I think, as if they're nothing more than assets. Like, Williams went from being, potentially an essential piece of the Lakers puzzle for the rest of the season to being labeled as damaged goods because of a medical condition. And, like, even the terminology around it, like, multiple issues. I mean, they're treating him like a used car that was, like, missing parts or something. I don't know. I just think the language around it was really, really weird. And so I guess that is my discussion. One is just how bad of a look do you guys think this is for the Hornets organization / do we even care because it's the Hornets and, like, this is just what we've come to expect? And two, do you guys have any thoughts in terms of how teams and the media, like, discuss these players as commodities? Do you take some issue in that? We're all sports writers here, so I guess just what is your thought on kind of some of the language that's used around these players in that sense?
I know I'm not supposed to ask compound questions because I teach you all not to do that, but I'm going to ask one question to each one of you, and one is, Kimball, because you are, I know you can't delve into the specifics, but because you are a scout and involved in a lot of trades, I'm curious on your end whether that sort of idea ever crosses your mind, that it's just you're trading, this is a meat market and you're just trading this piece of meat for another piece of meat. And Shelby, my question to you is, do you think it was, if none of this had happened, if this injury issue hadn't come up, was this a good trade for the Hornets? So Kimball, start first.
Well, I would say absolutely. They are pro basketball players, pro baseball players, professionals signed to contracts. They are commodities, right? And they sort of, if they don't want that, then they shouldn't be playing professional sports and getting those big salaries. I think that just comes with the territory. And they know that's just part of the game. Now, if we were trading high schoolers and middle schoolers and trashing them in the press for their, injuries or other reasons, that would be a different thing. But I think this goes with the job.
Yep. All right, Shelby, was this a good trade for the Hornets? You, as one of the two Hornets fans in the world?
Thanks. So I think, for me, no. And not even just the way that it worked out, but I think if you look at, he was traded for, and I pulled this up just to check myself, not only was it Lakers rookie Dalton Connect, which I think would be a good addition, but Cam Reddish, 2030 pick swap, LA's 2031 first round pick.
I can't believe they're trading 2031 draft picks right now. That's insane. Yeah, go ahead.
Like, what are we talking about? Anyways, I think that I understand from a Hornets standpoint if you're looking at the Lakers and you understand that, okay, I mean, they just trade away AD. They need, a lob target for Luka. They need a center. We have a guy. Let's, see if we can shop him around. Yes, but I still think that you are trading him, even with all the things I mentioned, at a fraction of his value in terms of Williams' ceiling. I think he's really come along defensively, and he's a young guy that if I were the Hornets, would want to hold on to and build around him. That being said, if part of the reason that they were shopping him around is because of some of these, underlying health issues that arose, maybe I understand that, but I don't think that it was a wise move. I guess my question in bringing up the whole like language thing is like, yes, absolutely, like these guys I think are, in from a business sense, like commodities, but I don't know, like, is there a way to just with something like this, like, discuss the failed physical or some of these elements in a way that feels a little bit more like humanizing? Because for me, it just feels weird.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm being too PC with it, but I'm just like, this guy's being rescinded for multiple issues. I'm like, dude, this is a dude with like feelings, bro. Like,
No.
I think you are. Yeah, I think you're being.
And he already got thrown
very
under the
PC.
bus by Coach K after he missed those free throws in the UNC Duke Final Four game.
Yeah,
So
it
I don't know.
always
Maybe
comes back to that. Yep.
maybe I have a soft spot for Mark Williams,
Yeah.
man. He's been thrown under the bus too many times, man.
All right.
On
Well,
these big stages.
here's my piece of advice, and of course, because I know nothing about the NBA, I can't really say anything about this, but I can bring an even more cogent point to this discussion, and that is, and you can benefit from this greatly, Kimball, as someone who's involved in trades, often for future prospects. This is the time. I've learned just this morning. I learned that this is the time to trade the future for the present, and you don't have to take this. I mean, you take this advice from me, Kimball. You don't have to credit me, but shout out to Celia's Scribbles, because she just wrote about AI, and the world is about to change to the point that in 4 or 5 years we will have no control over what's going on. It's going to be a totally different world, and who knows whether there's even going to be sports anymore. So trade your future assets for your current assets. Chase down the Dodgers now, because this is the time. The world is going through, because of AI, the world is going to be totally different. And why would you ever bother to even think about trading for the future now? Just worry about now. Okay? That's my advice.
We're getting philosophical out
That's
here.
my advice. Well,
So you're
it
so
hit
you
me
think,
like a sledgehammer this morning that I realized.
So you're
when
in
I
favor
realized
of the Mavs moves and this trade deadline?
Yeah, I guess I am. And I mean, obviously, it's not looking so good right now with AD, but yeah, I think the Mavs made the move for the right reasons, because they realize that AI is about to completely destroy the world, and why not just go ahead and get it, see whether we can win it this year. This is the year. You got to do it now, because the future, it's too uncertain. AI is about to completely change the world. Fair?
I mean, yeah, part of my issue is that I feel like, I don't know, some of the chalk around Mark Williams, they're treating him like a robot, but maybe in a few years there will be a Mark Williams robot out there, and so my point
controlled by AI.
Yeah, there you go. AI basketball. God, that sounds awful.
I know. I've been suffering through this all morning. Don't read Celia's Scribbles. Your whole attitude will be destroyed. So yeah. All right. Point number 3 is a little bit of a departure from what we've talked about so far. It's
no
but,
NBA.
but
You're
still
not doing
hoops,
an NBA point,
but still hoops. Yeah, because I don't know anything about the NBA. Believe it or
Doesn't
not,
know
I'm
NFL,
reverting
NBA.
to college hoops. And yes,
It's crazy.
and by the way, Liam McNeely did drop 38 last night, so look out for UConn.
Bruh. If it ain't gonna be the Chiefs, it's gonna be UConn.
That's got to be my next.
If we getting 1-3,
I'm hanging on to something.
Yeah, damn.
All right, so I'd like to talk a little bit about how, I mean, we talked a lot about NIL on this podcast, but it really is starting to scare me. Talk about AI ruining the world. the next thing I'm worried about is NIL, because I mean, we know that for years now, the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, they've basically had their own system of NIL, the under the table NIL that they've been using for years to dominate college football. But they've never had that much power in college basketball at all. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that SEC basketball was just Kentucky and when does college football season start? I mean, that was basically the SEC. So as recently as 2021, and I put our crack research staff to work on this, there were only 2 SEC teams in the final AP Top 25. 2021, 4 years ago, just 2 teams. But now, some people in the SEC, the big shots, the deep pockets, seem to have discovered the fact that college basketball exists. And I don't know if you've noticed, but right now there are 4 SEC teams in the top 5 in the AP rankings. 5 of the first 8, 9 of the top 25, 9. 2 4 years ago, now 9. Currently, if you look at the bracketology, as I often do, you'll find that there are 13 SEC teams. 13 SEC teams. Think about that. Are currently in the field. 13 out of the 68.
It's crazy.
And
It's probably deserved too. To
and
be honest.
Arkansas is the last one out, is the first one out. So that would make it 14, potentially. I mean, John Calipari's Arkansas, yeah, they got a good chance to make it. They just beat Kentucky the other day at Rupp.
Impressive.
So that'd be 14. 14. The record is 11. In 2011, Big East had 11. They're looking at 14. 3 of the 4 projected number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament, SEC. Didn't the ACC used to do stuff like that? I could have sworn they did. And last night I'm watching Tennessee and Kentucky. They are the 4th and the 6th best teams in the conference, according to the polls. And it looked a lot more like Luka and the NBA to me than it did like any ACC game that I've seen this year that doesn't involve Duke or maybe Clemson. And I got bad news. It gets even worse. All right, quiz time, folks. You ready?
Oh, God.
Our listeners at home can play along at home and see if you can spot a trend. What school is the reigning national champ in the following sports? I will give you a layup first. Women's basketball, Shelby.
Bro.
Reigning national champion, women's basketball.
Reigning national champion,
And
women's basketball.
Yeah.
Let me guess. SEC.
Well, not conference, just what team? You know, right? What
Bro,
team is the reigning
The
national champ?
Gamecocks.
Yes, South Carolina, SEC. Who's the reigning national champ in baseball? Either one of you. NCAA champ baseball. We played them in the
Guessing it's an SEC school.
Tennessee, SEC.
There you go.
Softball? Anybody?
SEC.
Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
SEC. Indoor and outdoor track? Anybody? Arkansas,
SEC.
SEC.
Damn.
Gymnastics? Anybody?
Wow.
LSU, SEC.
Mm-hmm. Libby
Wow.
Dunn.
Rowing? Anybody? You won't see this one coming.
Ivy League.
Texas,
What?
SEC.
No.
Women's tennis? Women's tennis?
SEC. SEC.
Texas A&M, women's tennis, SEC. Men's golf? Men's
Oklahoma.
golf? Oklahoma, good guess. Auburn, you know, that
Yeah, that
well-known
men's golf.
Auburn golf factory, SEC. So, I guess the point I'm trying to make, you do seem to have spotted the trend. The point I'm trying to make is that the SEC is starting to rule the world, even in sports that they traditionally have not been very good at. Now they're suddenly winning those too. along with dominating college football and college basketball, although college football they took a little bit of a hit this year, but it makes me think, what's next? If they can win women's tennis and golf, what's next for the SEC? Is it ice hockey,
Bro.
water polo, fencing? What is it? What are they going after next? I guess my question is, that's my point. What's my question is for those of us who are ACC fans or fans of any other conference at this point, how can we stop Godzilla? How can we do it? Is there any hope, or do we just give up? Is there any hope? What do you guys think?
Well, let me say, and you guys probably know a ton about this, and I just am finding this out with the rest of the people out there in the world, this whole UNC investigating conference realignment thing. It was a strange story, and I took it to mean like, oh, they're just exploring how they can do better. Is that so bad? And do you think that's wrapped up in this idea? Like,
are you talking about UNC leaving the ACC?
Yeah, like whatever that story was about how they spent all this money to explore their options, conference realignment options or conference options, which again, I thought the story is kind of obtuse, but I took it to mean like, yeah, maybe they're thinking we can't compete in the ACC because all you can do is compete in the SEC with all the money. And so again, I'm asking you guys if that's, part of this, if like that's all we can do is if you can't beat them, join them.
Right, but if you can't beat them, join them. Then ask yourself about a team like, say, or a university like Missouri. Missouri, how's that worked out for you, Missouri? Adding yourself to the SEC. Does anyone even know the Missouri's in the SEC? I mean, they can't win anything because they can't compete with all these other monster schools with all their deep-pocketed donors.
I will say, just on a quick note, in terms of just to add some context for our listeners, what the scout is talking about is this morning. So, Brendan Marks was on the byline, but an Athletic article revealed that, and these are documents that have been out for a little while. I think they were originally requested by the Tampa Bay Times, and I was able to get copies of them as well, but basically revealed that UNC has been quietly exploring the possibility of leaving the ACC for another conference like the Big Ten or SEC due to the ACC's financial decline. Again, this is stuff we've known about, but just like kind of providing some documentation. So over the course of 2 years, UNC has spent over $600,000 on legal consultation services with a code name for the initiative called, quote, Carolina Blue Matter. Documents suggest that UNC began these explorations in September 2022, just a little bit after Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC. Basically, that's just what the scout was talking about, in case folks hadn't checked out that Athletic article.
Right, and I'm saying that, well, it sounds good. Yeah, wow, UNC could join the SEC. Super. But we could be Missouri. We could be Maryland, who joined the Big Ten thinking, yeah, great idea.
Maryland women's hoops can put up, but yeah, I mean, the
Maryland
overall,
they're irrelevant.
Yeah.
Missouri is irrelevant.
Yeah.
They've joined this monster, what seemed like such a great idea. We're going to join the SEC because the SEC is the place that we're going to get all the money. But we're just going to be punching bags. We're going to be punching bags in almost every sport. And is that what UNC wants? I'm just picking UNC here, but there's anybody who's thinking about joining one of those two conferences. What's that?
Well, forgive me for not knowing this, but so if the SEC has all this money for NIL, what's the theory about, okay, why and long term will they always have it? Like, does that mean that the ACC schools can't start pulling up tons of dough and they're
well, they have to, and that's what's happening with Belichick.
Right. No, so like it doesn't mean like, or is there something? Is there some systemic reason why, well, other schools and other conferences can never, try and match what the SEC is doing? I mean, to me, it seems like you just put your priorities. At some point, colleges just say like, look, this is not what we're about. We don't care how many water polo championships you win in the SEC, it doesn't matter. We're not going to go there. Or is
Right.
there something I'm
Yeah.
missing?
I don't know. I mean,
Well,
this
that's
is a
been
great
UNC's
question for
position
Shelby.
for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
I think, is that they're not some sports factory, and they care about the academics, and I think that's a lot of what um like UNC and the ACC as a whole have prided themselves on, right? Is this I don't know, like the kind of the old model of college athletics, and I mean that works, I think, to a certain extent under the guise of amateurism, and that's an umbrella that kind of creates an even playing field. But obviously, I mean, that really has not been happening if we're like kind of honest with ourselves. And certainly, it's inconceivable now that anybody could still be operating under some sort of old school model, which is why I think it's long overdue that Hubert Davis finally announced that, hey, yeah, the old model doesn't work and we need a GM. Like,
Right.
no offense, but like, no shit. Like, yeah. I think that one of the things that stands out to me, and I have been following, is that in recent years, the university, UNC, has been involved in like providing some funds specifically for the athletic department, and that hasn't always happened. You also have the money coming in terms of rev share, about like 20.5 million, a large portion of which is going to be given to football. But really it's like it's a cyclical effect, right? In schools that and programs that have long prioritized football are going to generate more money for their athletic department, the university as a whole, and then you have more money that you can spread to other teams. I hate to use this term trickle down effect, but it is true in the way that college sports operates, and that's why people keep railing on and on about the current ACC ESPN contracts that the conference is locked in, because I think the ACC is well, I don't know if you can even make this argument now, but the argument is that the ACC has been undervalued in terms of like what they provide and what they're getting from the TV contract. That's something that they're locked into until what? It's like 2036. And you're kind of stuck there. So I don't know. I mean, really, all that you can hope to do is what UNC is doing, I think, with this Belichick experiment. Like, you just gotta see, okay, where's the money flowing from? The clear source of all this is football. What is the biggest room for growth? It's not gonna be revenue from TV contracts, because you're locked into that. But in discussions with Bubba Cunningham, he realized, like, okay, we can, fill Keene Stadium and sell off season tickets. That's one of the biggest like areas of potential growth. And so, okay, you hire a 6-time Super Bowl champion, that might get some butts in seats, and then that provides for the other sports. A lot of it too is just at that point you're trying to galvanize alumni, donors, boosters, and if they're more willing to shell out for a big name like Belichick, then you go with that, even despite concerns of no college experience, things like that. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's not that complicated in terms of like the cause. I mean, I think the cause of this SEC dominance is, I mean, essentially just this like sort of like generational wealth almost that's been like produced year in year out with football. And the solution is that other schools that have not been as willing to label themselves a football school or go all in on football, or really all in on athletics for that matter, in terms of a like traditional football based athletic model, okay, well, like you got to decide, are you going to buy in, or are you going to kind of maintain this traditional broad-based approach, and then you're probably going to be left behind.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. To simplify it, football is king.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember I've had this conversation with Anson Dorrance, women's soccer coach here at UNC for years, and he always used to say to the ADs, "Don't give us any money, give it to football, because
Yes.
you invested in football. That's what's going to help trickle down to all the rest of us. If our football team ever gets good, it's going to trickle down in a much bigger way for the rest of the sports." And so he recognized that football is king, and was always willing to sacrifice money for their program in order to see if they could build a football program. And I think you're right. SEC football programs, generational wealth is a great way to put it. That's been going on forever.
I mean, one figure here, just to back up your point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like in the 2023-2024 fiscal year, if I have this correct, the SEC distributed $808.4 million to the SEC's 16 universities. That averages about $52.5 million per school. And I mean, that revenue is primarily generated from television deals,
Right.
which are to broadcast football and its postseason games and championships and tournaments. And then that financial success, it leads to investments in athletic facilities, coaching staff, recruitments.
Yeah.
I mean, it just further enhances the SEC's competitive edge. And to compare, in that same fiscal year, if I have it correct, ACC schools received between like $43.3 million and like between 43 and 46.9 million.
So significant difference.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's really where we're at. And another piece of it is, I just think one of you guys had alluded to this, is that the ACC, at least in general, is trying to stick to their guns about academics. I hate to say it, but most of the SEC has never been that concerned with academics, and we, for whatever reason, are still trying to hang on to this, to our reputation as being a good academic schools here in the ACC, and we do have a lot of them. And whether it's okay to throw that under the bus and say, all right, we're just going for it athletically, I don't know that the ACC's ever been prepared to do that, nor will they ever be, I don't think. And so it's just it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's going to keep happening. The SEC is just going to keep building through football, and I don't know how we're going to catch them.
So I'm thrown for a little bit of a loop here, because what I hear you guys saying is that, one, UNC might have to fire some of its high-priced professors like Tim Crothers and put that money into sports again.
High price.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the only thing that can save my beloved Tar Heel basketball program is Bill Belichick.
Oh my God.
It would help. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, Shelby. You can confirm or deny this. I mean, weren't some of the issues with the pursuit of people like Ballo and some of the other big centers that they were going after? Wasn't there some talk that we just weren't willing to pony up or weren't able to pony up the sort of NIL that they were looking for?
I mean, that's the general understanding.
I mean, I don't know that for a fact, obviously, but if that is the case, that's just a perfect example of, maybe a few years down the road, and the SEC is certainly ponied up. You look at some of their basketball teams. I mean, that talk about coming full circle. Their basketball teams are built on guys that they've been able to get through the transfer portal through NIL.
Yeah, I think the understanding is that, for UNC, like you were just mentioning, some of the off-season meetings, there was, and again, sincere apologies if I mispronounce these names, but Adu Thero at Arkansas, and then Cliff at Alabama. And again, without really speaking into like without just diving like too deep into like kind of the details there, I
Mhm.
mean, Hubert Davis has long maintained and reiterated that North Carolina will never be a transactional program.
Mhm.
And that's just something that he doesn't believe in. I think obviously the way that this season is going, he's kind of starting to shift those beliefs, but the sort of understanding is that I mean, if somebody is coming with their hand out, palm up, that's not really
What
how
we're
he's
about.
approaching things. And then, as you saw, those two coveted transfer portal big guys ended up at Arkansas and Alabama.
And another one, Kentucky.
Yeah.
So, I think that is a nice wrap up. So, you got anything else, Kimball?
Nope.
I think we've covered it. So, I think this podcast was lit. What do you think, Shelby?
It's pretty lit. I mean, about as lit as we can get on a rainy Wednesday. And I don't know, the midweek, I'm used to these Mondays, and so it's throwing me off a little bit, guys.
We'll try to get back to your circadian rhythm in the
Thanks.
future. All right. Well, that said, thank you to our student marketing guru, logo designer, newsletter writer, and mostly purveyor of AI doom, Celia Funderburk. Thanks to our student executive producer, Sarah Ellis, who admirably hustled here directly from class so we could get this thing done on a rainy Wednesday. And of course, for the prospect, Shelby Swanson, and the scout, Kimball Crosley, I'm the professor, Tim Crothers, ignoring the Super Bowl to pull up from the logo for 3. Good.
Very nice.